Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good morning. It's kind of fun to say, and welcome to a special city council meeting. It's July 17th at 9 a.m. We'll go ahead and get started. Ms. Vicki, do we have a quorum present?
Yes, Mayor, we do.
Okay, what's our next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 2 is public comment, and I have a few requests to address the council. The first being Mark Harper, address 401 Atlee Drive.
Welcome, Mr. Harper.
Mark Harper, 401 Atlee Drive. I would like to request that the council not have the executive session and have that meeting in public. If we're going to have to hear about it from an opinion blogger this afternoon, I'd rather have that discussion in open. And since you're a town hall meeting and you think that everything that you say back there you can bring out, I'd say go ahead and have that in a public session so that we can all hear that. And I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. Next, we have Callie Beard, address 202 Headwater Drive.
Welcome, Mrs. Beard.
Callie Beard, 202 Headwater Drive. Good morning, y'all. I know the point of this meeting is mostly to talk about what to do about the resignation of our law firm, but I did want to raise concern about the way in which the public found out about that, which was through somebody who received the letter handing it off to a local propaganda blogger. Now, it is concerning to me that a couple on council have already expressed that they're not concerned that the public found out that way. They're just glad the public found out in general. I would say the nature by which he received that letter, which was clearly somebody printing it out, handing it to him for him to scan back in, kind of lends itself to the fact that somebody knew they were doing something wrong by giving him that letter. So I actually thought, Mayor, that you had a great idea on Monday night. You said that you would like to launch a full council investigation into this, but that council has been split 3-3, and you didn't think that you would get the votes. So to that I would say, can we do the investigation? Because I would be shocked if everyone didn't vote to figure out who leaked this letter. And if by some chance it was split 3-3, I think that would tell the public which 3 value transparency and which don't. So we would love to know that information. And I know you guys have a lot of tough conversations in executive session today. I just hope this can be one of them. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Beard.
And last, we have Karen Kaiser, address 1093 North Churchill Drive.
Welcome, Ms. Kaiser.
Thank you. Good morning, Karen Kaiser, 1093 North Churchill Drive. I did not know until yesterday that for Texas Open Meetings Act, there is no mandatory reason to go into closed session. If I had been taking a quiz, I would have thought purchasing real estate so you don't, skew your deal, certain employee matters, for their privacy concerns, and pending or existing litigation. But no, there's not a one that's mandatory. And I have seen many times in recent months, probably since that magical November that you mentioned often, Mayor, in your second town hall, you're going into closed session for hours at a time for conversations to happen in there that the citizen in me knows should be happening right where you're seated, because the public doesn't get a vote, but we have the right to hear. You're not discussing again, there's no reason that you have to be in closed session. You're choosing. And I have found in life, and everyone jokes I'm old, there's not many old people in this young city. I have found in my lifetime involvement in local government, those who say the 2 words open and transparent the most frequently are typically neither. So you speak often from the leadership on down of how open and transparent. I think today would be a great start. Everyone knows that something was brewing between the law firm and your, not once, not twice, repeated refusal to follow legal advice. And since there is no TOMA legality requiring you to be in, you're not discussing anybody's salary, you're discussing what happened. The citizens of fate that will listen today, not many here because they're probably at work, many will listen in the future when this video stream gets replayed. They have absolutely the right to know what happened, because the flippant way I've heard it described of like happening in cities all over Texas. No, it's not. And the letter that I concur with our citizen, Ms. Beard, it sickens me that I have to go on the website of someone I could not disrespect more. I don't think he's a journalist. I don't even know that it's a blogger. He hates our city. He speaks hatefully of people that I admire and respect that have served this city for 14 years longer than all of you all. And I have to get this letter off of clicking on his page. I don't care if he gets a dime or a dollar for it. I care that I have to go there and see his filthy pictures and all of his nasty bias slant. But this letter defies the way you described it, Mayor and others. Unfortunately, we're at a point where we can no longer continue to represent the city. That sentence tells you this wasn't lighthearted, this wasn't a minimum matter, this was huge. We've watched it build over months, and you need to have your meeting open and transparent in the public and let us all hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser.
And there are no others that have signed up to speak.
All right, thank you, Ms. Vicky. Next agenda item, please.
Next will be Agenda Item 3, which is executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.001. The City Council will recess into executive session closed meeting to discuss the following. A, in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. Number 1, a city attorney.
Okay, thank you. It looks like I have a few council members wishing to speak. Mr. Hatley?
Oh, I'd like to make a motion that we don't adjourn to executive session, that we do the whole thing in open session. I'm good with that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Oh, Mr. Mandeville?
Can we participate in the meeting? I'm sorry. Can we participate in the meeting if we're not present? Making motions and seconding?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
we don't have to come here?
There has to be a quorum of the council physically present,
Okay.
but a member can remote in under Texas state law.
So we could still conduct this if,
With certain limits.
well, if one of us went home now, we could still conduct it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I never knew that. Okay.
We've not used it,
Alan,
we've not
I'm
used it
just
before.
trying, I'm asking for clarification.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
No, that's perfect. Okay, so we have a motion.
So I'll second the motion.
Well, we do have a second. Mr.
Okay.
Robbins did second that motion, but any discussion? All right, all those in favor of staying in open session to discuss this upcoming agenda item indicate by raising your hand, please. All right, motion passes unanimously. We will stay in open session. Okay. So yes, we are, just to give the public a little bit of an idea of why we are here, kind of mapping out a timeline and then discussing why we're doing this, why I asked this to be a special meeting before, obviously, our 20th date when Messer Ford is no longer going to represent us. What we can say definitively, I don't want to speculate too much on what our attorneys or attorney firm indicated, but we were asked by Mr. Andy Messer himself to provide a list of questions that we had regarding the service that the city was, or that the firm was giving to the city. Those questions were submitted on, I believe, Thursday afternoon, and by about 4 hours later, Messer Fort sent us that resignation letter. Obviously, I was disappointed in that, as we were asked specifically by Andy Messer himself to send those questions. I can only guess that he did not want to have to answer those questions and that's why he decided to resign. Those questions will be posted on my campaign Facebook page later today, so everybody can see what specifically was asked. I do want to be clear that as of this morning, we had not received answers. And then, Mr. Kovacs, tell me if you think I'm incorrectly speaking here, but when we spoke, you had indicated that you do not think that Mr. Andy Messer has any intention of asking the questions, or of answering the questions, excuse me, that were asked of him. Is that correct still?
In my conversations with him, I didn't get the impression that he wanted to answer those questions, and there's some reasons for some of that, and I'm reluctant to talk about that in open session.
Okay. And to be clear, I don't want to speculate on that, except that we do know he asked us for questions, we sent the questions, he resigned a couple of hours later. And is not going to be answering them. So at this point, we are here to, given that we have just a couple of days before we will not have a city attorney, I spoke with Mr. Kovacs about listing several attorneys and attorneys' firms that we could use, even in an interim capacity or a short-term capacity, so that we don't have a gap in any gap in coverage. That sounds like it's insurance, but a gap in representation, I should say. And so the purpose of the special meeting, and I know it's a Friday morning, which I know will automatically lend itself to some people in the community likely asking why during the morning, why on a Friday, people are at work, etc. Being that we canceled the July 20th meeting, I wanted to make sure, and then we're not coming back until I think it's August 3rd. I wanted to make sure we address this as soon as possible, and I know we had talked briefly about doing this meeting Thursday night, last night, but given that we would be butting up against a planning and zoning meeting, it just made sense to do it this morning. That way we have the time necessary and we're not making people wait around and that sort of thing. So at this point, from a charter standpoint, the city council is over the city manager, city secretary, municipal judge, and city attorney. And so I thought it would be best, even though Michael has put together some attorneys, and we have a list here, and I'm sure we can share this with anybody who would want to see it, that has some status in terms of his reaching out to these firms to discuss their ability and their likelihood to want to come to fate. Before any decision is made, it would be best for the council to approve that, and so that's where we are here today. So, Mr. Kovacs, do you want to give us an idea on some of these attorney firms, what you found, and kind of how you think we can move forward?
Yes, sir, sure. So I got some, as Mr. Messer was calling me to talk about his resignation, he did give me some leads for some local law firms that he said would be really good in the municipal realm. It's kind of a specialty. And so I began kind of reaching out to those folks. So one of them, then these are in no particular order, just kind of however my list, I have a chicken scratch list, which this is much more organized, but so I just kind of threw them together. There's no order. But Mr. Abernathy, he's Frisco's lawyer, and I talked to Wes Pearson, who's the city manager, and said that he's very pleased with how they are doing. I did talk to Mr. Abernathy for about 20 minutes. And he's more of a retirement role, or he's kind of the of council role where he's not as active as before, but he does have a CEO, I believe it's Mr. Boyd, and he's going to be discussing with his partners whether or not they would be interested in some sort of an interim stint. Mark Hauser with Brown & Hausmeister, he's McKinney's lawyer. I talked to Paul Grimes, the city manager there, and he highly recommended him. I actually have a time to talk to him on Monday. Whit Wyatt was also recommended by Andy. It's a newer firm, he said, but I've contacted them. I've not received a call back yet. Dottie Palumbo and there's others in the Borkowitz law firm. I work with her in Galveston, and she lives here in the Metroplex and commutes to the Hill Country and all over the place. She used to work with TML. He can't give us her, but they would work for us on an interim basis. I talked to Mr. Borkowitz yesterday for about 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And the one trick is that they would want to do remote in as much as possible. And if we need an attorney, we can't have Dottie, who's close. They would send someone from Austin or Houston, so we'd have those costs involved. So he says we probably don't want to get into that. But they would help us in a pinch, starting Monday if we needed them. And then I talked to Wendell at SGR, who's in charge of interim placement, and there's a couple people that have recently retired. So he is reaching out to those folks. I've not heard back from them. They may have gone off to other temporary assignments, but I can follow up with him. David Overcash, some of you know David Overcash. He stepped in for a while. Wolf Tidwell McCoy, he served right after Cynthia for a while, and then we did the RFP or RFQ, and then we selected Messer. He's discussing today with his partners if he can do that. He seemed to be interested. John Thatcher, I know everyone kind of remembers John Thatcher, and he lives here in town. He could walk to the office if he needed to, but he works for the city of Forney, and he's not leaving Forney. But I asked him, like, depending on how we did this.
Not leaving Forney yet.
That's right. When the commute turns into an hour, then maybe we can get him back. But right now it's only 35 minutes, so he's probably there for a long time. But there's a potential that we could do an interlocal agreement with the city of Forney that would require city council approval, a council approval by the city of Forney, and then we could essentially piggyback on them. They would have to look at capacity issues and so forth, and I don't know how long that would go for, but it's probably just an interim period. But he wanted us to talk about that possibility first before he approached the Forney City Council. And then Mr. Kramer at Bailey and Galen, got a staff referral for that one. I've contacted them, but I've not heard back from them. So that is kind of our status. That's about 8 different firms. I didn't want to get too deep into it. I have other contacts around the state, but they're in other regions, which means you have travel costs and so forth. There's also a number of other cities in the area that have non-in-house counsel, and there's some folks that do have in-house counsel. So there's a big list that we could go down if we wanted to expand the search and spend a lot more time doing that. But we can, whatever you like to do, we're here to facilitate your selection.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand, the Dottie, Palumbo, and others, when you say interim, yes, remote, is that the only one that we would be looking at as far as a remote possibility? All the others would be able to come to our council meetings?
Generally, the general rule, the more that I talk to people, the farther they were from Fate, the more they wanted to kind of have that remote capability. So I think the closer the people are, the more that they would have, they want to be, they could be in person. For example, Mr. Overcash, I think he lives in the Greenville ETJ somewhere, so he can get here fairly easily. But all the others, even some of the Frisco folks, they would send people, but anybody who's not kind of Eastern Metroplex or Dallas is going to start to ask for more and more remote call-in sort of capabilities and desires.
Okay, thoughts from council?
I'd rather have a warm body in the chair, personally. If we could steer towards that, that would be better for me.
Okay, so, and I'm glad you said that, Mr. Robbins. So I think that would probably be, unless somebody's just vehemently opposed to that, I would say that as far as your list that you're kind of going to put together in terms of who to prioritize, we can move that one down to the bottom of this list if it's going to be remote. I mean, obviously, if none of the others work, then we can talk about that. But at least if it's going to be a remote proposition, then we'd not like to prioritize that one. Mr. Hatley?
I would agree with that. I would also say that hopefully if we're going to use a firm, it would be more interim. I'd much rather have an in-house attorney that just works for us. I think that's worked out better in the past than using firms. Firms are much more expensive, by far.
Okay, other thoughts? Ms. Huffman?
So the firms that are working with Frisco and McKinney seem like they're currently working with cities that are growing fast, busy. They're obviously bigger than we are, but I lean toward that level of experience.
Okay, other preferences or thoughts? do we want, go ahead, Mr.
I
Mandel.
was going to say, I agree with the view just expressed by Martha.
Okay.
That attorneys that are working with bigger cities, and they're obviously recommended, that we would probably be well-served by those.
As far as just to ensure, as I'm made some notes, I guess I'll ask it this way, any opposition from council for John Thatcher from an interlocal potential there? In other words, do we want to close that door or leave that open in case that pans out to something?
I'd be worried about bandwidth with his current duties splitting between two cities unless there's more of a staff that he has access to.
What does that look like, Michael, in terms of if we would be using potentially Forney's attorney or Frisco's attorney or McKinney's attorney? How does that?
So the Frisco and McKinney attorneys, those are firms.
Oh, okay.
So those have expandable, and they're bigger, so they should have the bandwidth capability. Forney's going to be, a little trickier. I know John's put in for a position request, and it's probably not going to get filled. A lot of cities are not filling new positions this year just because of the residential tax base decline. But all cities are looking for, all cities are looking for extra revenue as well. So this would be a revenue source that he could bring to his budget process. So I'm not sure quite how it would go, but I know, they have two attorneys in-house, and they also have a paralegal. So they do have, for a slightly bigger town than us, they have a lot of capabilities.
Okay.
But I could explore that with him more
Sure.
about like how many, and I could send him a copy of our bill just to kind of show him what the number of hours are and see if that kind of knocks him out.
Okay. And Ms. Huffman?
Well, Mr. Kovacs has, I guess, more of an ability to research some of the possibilities here with networking with other cities and aware of representation through TML. And so I also value Mr. Kovacs' opinion on who he thinks could do a good job on an interim basis. So.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments? Mr. Hatley?
Well, hopefully we'll have some more candidates. I know I'm researching and I'm talking to people that I know in the legal business and trying to get recommendations as well.
Okay. Well, at this point, just to make sure if, because I know I'm looking at this list, discussion with the partners, time to talk next week. This is just hypothetical, I want to be clear, but you said it looks like the Mark Hauser has time to talk on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say he reaches out to you on Monday at 10 a.m. and he says, yep, we're good to do it. What does that process look like from there? Are you looking for us to give, would you look at this and say, hey, unless we cross anybody off of this list, is this going to be kind of the first one to say, hey, I can do it, you're going to want to take?
Ideally, just because on Monday, let's say an open records request comes in on Monday, we have no one to send it to. So we're kind of in a really big pinch here. If it wasn't for all the open records coming in, I think we'd be able to go a little bit longer and take a little bit more time. But if you would kind of give me permission to select and move as fast as possible on whoever I could get, that I think would be best, that would help. And then I could bring that back to you at the earliest meeting, possibly August 3rd. And we can kind of regroup at that point.
Okay, and I'm guessing you would explain to these people that the approval from council was to essentially fill in for any kind of gap we have. This would not be necessarily a long-term proposition.
No, this would be an interim process and something that could go, now this could go, into November, and if weird things happen, it could go into May. And then that would give, in May-ish, that would give kind of a new council, whoever those folks may be, a chance to evaluate current services and then figure out if they want to do an RFQ. And then I think we'd have a better chance to get, especially if we wanted our own city attorney, we'd be in the budget process by then for FY28, so we could figure out if we want to do our own city attorney, and that would give us transition period from, let's say, June July, August, and then the new fiscal year could start in October. So that's not a bad period. So we may have interim folks for quite some time, which would be okay, I think.
I might suggest to the council that we give Michael permission for a 45-day interim. That way, when we get back in August, we can get a longer interim and we can review the candidates.
Yeah, Mr. Robbins, that's the idea, is just to get him, give him the opportunity to talk. I just wanted to see what his thoughts were going to be in terms of if he had and I was making notes here too, just that, you know, we've had notes from Ms. Huffman on Frisco and McKinney, being that they're larger growing cities like ours, looking at how we would all prefer not to have a remote if we could avoid it, and then asking John Thatcher, but obviously, and Mr. Robbins brought up a good point, if that's going to be too taxing on his abilities, of course, if he has any kind of hesitation, we would likely not want to go that route. I just want to make sure we're all clear on looking at that. As far as 45 days, I mean, if somebody on the law firm side wants a specific day amount, I'm good with that. Anybody have any objection to stating 45 days? Okay. All right, and so at this point, as far as this list, I do think, just because this is the list that we've discussed, this is the list obviously the public knows about now, let's try to limit it to this list, Mr. Kovacs. If none of these names work on this list, just reach out to council, and if we need to do another special meeting or anything like that before August, we can certainly discuss that option.
Okay.
So any other thoughts from council?
Yeah, I just have a couple of thoughts about this whole thing that came up. Messer Ford is a well-respected, competent law firm that represented the city and not the individual. The resignation is a serious warning that can't be ignored when members of city council bully, harass, and repeatedly disregard advice of the very attorneys hired to protect the city. They undermine the rule of law and responsible governance. Legal counsel exists to help elected officials avoid costly mistakes, not to be intimidated or dismissed when their advice is inconvenient. This kind of conduct places every resident at risk. It exposes the city to unnecessary legal liability, wastes taxpayer dollars, damages public trust, and weakens the integrity of our local government. No elected official should put personal agendas, political conflicts, or ego ahead of the best interest of the community. Our citizens deserve a city council that respects professional expertise, welcomes honest legal advice, and governs with integrity, accountability, and stability. Anything less is a failure of leadership that our community cannot afford. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Hatley.
Oh, I was just going to say thank you, Mr. Robbins, for your teleprompter response. But what the decisions that were made were done in session in person with Mr. Messer that you didn't attend. So you don't even know what happened inside of that meeting
I've been to plenty of meetings, sir.
Excuse me, sir, I have the floor.
All right.
Since you weren't at the meeting, you didn't hear the back and forth, you didn't hear the questions. We gave him a series of questions, which he asked us to put in writing. We put in writing. He knew what was coming, the questions that were coming, and once they were sent over, 4.5 hours, they resigned. We did what they asked him to do, and they're refusing to answer those questions. That does not sound to me like a firm that anybody would want to go forward with. If they're not going to answer. It was done behind closed doors. So when your employer asks you direct questions and you say put them in writing and then you don't answer them, you can say that we've ignored their advice. I think the questions that we had were completely legitimate. There were conflicts in how they interpreted Attorney General's rulings on the exact same
I don't believe this is on the agenda.
well, you got to mention that we had not listened to their.
I didn't say anything about the last executive session that I wasn't a
Well,
part of.
no, what you stated was we didn't.
Well,
we did
Mr.
not
Hatley,
listen to
the
their.
questions will be released
Okay,
later,
fair
so
enough.
the public will get to see those.
Well, he was allowed to state that we didn't listen to their advice. That wasn't on the agenda either. So, but since his face is so pronounced, he gets to make gestures, and he gets to make comments in between, through visuals. I just thought that I'd be able to answer that. But,
Sure.
but I'm just going to say, I'll finish it up, is if you want to have a say in it, show up to the meeting. It was an important meeting. There were 3 important things that happened that night, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, Ms. Vicky,
Appreciate
do you need an official motion and a vote on this to authorize the?
I think for clear consensus, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's do this. I'll make the motion that, given the list provided, we authorize Mr. Kovacs to contact these firms in the order and preference with which we have discussed as a council, to include a potential for up to 45 days should the firm ask for that amount of time, and that he's authorized to make a deal on an interim basis with an attorney's firm that could provide representation for our city. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, do you want to, is this a hand vote as well, Ms. Vicky?
Yes, sir, it
Okay.
would be a hand vote.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right, Ms. Vicky, next agenda item, please.
Next will be, item 4 is not needed because we did not go into executive session. So item number 5 is adjournment.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I guess this is another, okay.
Sorry,
That's okay, I'm looking down at my screen here and I don't
Mr.
see it.
Mayor?
Are-
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
sorry.
yes.
I'm not sure when I can discuss, but before we adjourn, I did have a question about the questions that were submitted to the firm. You mentioned that they would be provided to the public. I don't remember seeing that before the executive session, I did miss the meeting last Monday, I was out of town. But I'm not aware of what transpired in executive session.
Long story short with that, in executive session, there was a lot of discussion on questions that had arisen over some of the decisions that the firm has made, decisions council made, et cetera. And so Andy Messer said, put all these questions in writing and he'll answer them. And so I know that Mr. Hatley wrote some questions, I had some questions, and so those questions were then sent to Mr. Messer, and those are the questions. I think there are 9 or 10 questions somewhere around there, and so I will publish those questions later, just so everybody can see what was asked of the law firm.
But just making sure I didn't miss anything. Like, were they sent to the rest of council before you sent them to Messer Ford?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if I'd sent them to everybody, it would have been outside of it would have been.
Mr. Hatley, can you use your microphone, please?
I was not allowed to send it to everybody, but he asked me to do that. I did copy the mayor on there since he was also asked to send questions. But Vicki could send you a copy of that email.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely. Okay.
So
Oh,
out of
yes, sorry.
curiosity,
Sorry.
are
Ms.
we,
Ransom.
when you share them with the public, is it going to be like a recap, or are we getting a verbatim?
This is just going to be the email that was sent.
Okay.
Now, I mean, I will put on a post per our discussion in the city council meeting, but the questions will be just exact snippet or exact verbiage from the email that was sent. Okay. This is the motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes 6-0. We are adjourned. Thank you.